So we're going to start our message title. It's a new series. This week is called Jesus Proves His Authority. Jesus is Greater Than Nature. So this is our new series for the next few weeks about Jesus and his authority, proving who he really is. So how many of you have ever been in a storm, near a storm? We had a storm a few weeks ago here, right? Did the hail hit you guys where you guys live? It hit you guys? Did it hit you, Caitlin? Was there hail? No? Was there hail? There wasn't hail with you guys? There was hail in our neighborhood. So 2 weeks ago, Jason was home from school because he was sick, which was good. But you know those like alerts that go on your phone? Like super loud. Well, the alert was like next to him, which was kind of like sad because he was really scared. But all of his friends, I was getting text messages from his school because that was like during pickup time. And they can't release kids if there's like a hailstorm. And so he was at home with us, thankfully, but I was getting text messages about like, okay, parents, come pick up your kids. Just kidding, we're holding them all. And like, that was going on. And so he was really scared for his friends. And then the alert sounded. And what are you supposed to do in a tornado warning? Yes. Okay, good. But in your house, where are you supposed to go usually in a tornado? Correct, a basement. Guess what? Our house does not have a basement. And so we're trying to figure out what's the safest place in our house. Now, honestly, I lived in Kansas City for 5 years. So there was always tornado warnings going off there. We have a basement there. I remember the first time I heard one, because I grew up in Arizona, where there's nothing goes wrong there. Nothing. There's no weather issue ever, okay? But the first time I heard one was in the middle of the night. We had just got married. We're living in Kansas City, and I could hear the sirens like, and it's like kind of scary middle of the night. And I was like, oh my gosh, babe, we need to go to the basement. And if you all know my husband, he can sleep through a tornado, okay? And so he's like snoring, and I'm like, wake up. The tornado, he's like, it's just a warning. I'm like, no, I can hear the sound, the wind coming through our windows. He's like, oh, we're going to be fine. I was like, do I leave him? Do I just let him die by himself? Like, we just got married a few months ago, so like, should I just leave him? What should I do? It was fine. But so I have kind of become desensitized to tornado warnings now. And so when it went off, Josiah was very scared. And he was like, we need to go to the basement, but we don't have one. And I was like, it's okay. We're just going to go to the bathroom. And we sat in the bathroom, and he was really scared. And Josiah is very brave, right? He's very brave. But lately, he doesn't really like hug me a lot, because he's all grown up now. He's 6. But in that moment, he was like really scared and holding on. And it was very sweet for I was like, oh, I guess you still need mom, huh? But the point being, when you're really scared, who do you think of first? Okay, that's good. But who do you think of first? Usually it's like your mom, your dad, or someone you feel like you're really, really safe with. Really, really safe with. That's who you think of. Those of you who are college graduate are going to be graduating, going to college this next semester. When I went to college, my first semester, everyone's super excited because they're like, yay, no parents, and we're doing what we want. 2 weeks, that happens, okay? First 2 weeks of semester, everyone's like out on the lawn, they're staying up late, doing all these things, and then guess what happens in 2 weeks? Everyone gets sick because they're spreading the germs all around to each other. And then those who are dorming and away from their parents, you get sick, and then what happens? You get super homesick, and you miss your family, you miss your house, you miss your parents, you miss, all these things. When we are stressed or scared or anxious or sick or whatever, we're always looking for that place of comfort, that place of security. Now, that is the idea behind our message today. Because so far we've had multiple weeks of series about Jesus and who is he? And he said really crazy, amazing things about himself. He's the Son of God. He was there with all of creation. We hear all these things. But you and I know, people can talk the talk, right? But they have to actually be able to walk the walk. No one's going to believe you if you can't do what you say. Right? And so in this series, we are seeing Jesus prove what he says. Now, this was 2,000 years ago, but it is so relevant today Because in our postmodern, post-Christian world, I'm a millennial, so I am in my 30s. And when I grew up, it was still somewhat, I felt like America was still a very Christian place, But nowadays, that's not the case. That's not how the world works right now. We are a very post-Christian society. And so how does Jesus make sense in our world today? When you are at your campuses, at school, at work, on social media, whatever, how is Jesus and Christianity relevant for today? It is still so relevant because his authority is proven to us over and over again. And actually, the authority of Jesus, we need that proven to us even more in our world today. Because I think most of us in our world, we think of Jesus like a genie in a bottle. Do you guys know what a genie is? Aladdin, okay? With 3 wishes, whatever. We think of him like this toy that we can manipulate. And when we get tired of this toy, we just throw it away. But that's not how Jesus works. Because he is the one with true authority, the one who is the Son of God. And in our message today, we see that he has power even over nature. And through that, we see how he has authority in our lives. And so today, here's the context. Our first verse from the passage is out of Mark. And remember, these disciples had been watching Jesus now for a while, okay? They're like, we say, yes, we're going to follow you. They give up their livelihood, everything to follow this man, okay? And they've seen him perform miracles, raise people who are can't walk, people who are blind. Have you ever seen a blind person who can't walk? Can you imagine them getting up and walking or seeing or hearing? It was crazy what Jesus did. Now, these 12 men, they have watched him do these crazy miracles over and over again. But guess what? You can see miracles. You can see miracles all you want. But unless it happens to you, it doesn't change you. Okay, so here we are. They've seen these miracles. Oh, actually, hold on. There's a verse before this. Mark 4:35, 37 is not on there. Mark 4:35, 37. Okay, I'll read it out loud. So here's the context. As evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross to the other side of the lake. Now, when you and I think of a lake, what do you think about? We think about a small little thing of water. Like Cherry Creek State Park, right? You know what I mean? That's what we think about, okay? You guys, this is not a lake. This is a sea. It is encompassed around, it's not so it is a lake, but it is huge, okay? You could drown in it. So they're let's cross. And so they took Jesus in the boat and started out. But soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat and it began to fill with water. Now, it was common knowledge in that area that at night storms often happen on that water. But what did that passage say? Was Jesus oh, I'm tired, you guys. Let's just stay here. And they're no, let's go. Who initiated? He said, hey. He was let's go. Let's go to the other side. He knew that the storm was coming. He knew it was coming. And yet he's y'all, let's go chase the storm, Let's just go. And so they go. Again, even though these disciples had witnessed his power, they had never experienced it directly for themselves. And now here we are, they are now in a storm. Their lives are now at stake. They're at risk of drowning and dying. And so now the stakes get higher. So what happens in this passage? Mark 4:38. It says this, Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat. He's like my husband. He just sleeps through anything. Here he is, just sleeping. Not even just sleeping, y'all. What is he doing? With his head on a cushion. Jesus is real extra. He has a cushion and he's just sleeping. And they woke him up shouting, what did they say? Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown? That's a really interesting response to me. Because they could have been dude, get up. The storm is is huge. That's probably what we would normally say. But what do they say? Don't you even care about us? What are you doing? Just sleeping and having a great time. Now, when these kinds of storms come, this is an actual storm, right? A literal storm. But we're talking like in our lives, you're not really facing an actual storm. But most of us, we are facing a spiritual storm or a figurative storm. You and I have storms that we face in our lives, right? So when the storm comes, how do you respond? Jesus slept. Jesus slept. He was at peace, trusting and resting in God, secure in him, that no matter what happens in this life, he's okay because God's got him. Because God, he knows who God is. God is the one who is the author of all creation. He can control the storm. Like, he knows that. He's like, it's okay. Like, this storm does nothing because I know exactly who's behind all of this, who's over all of this. But most of us aren't going to be like Jesus, okay? When you see a storm coming, what are you going to do? You're probably going to freak out a little bit, okay? Because that's how all of us are like. We're like the disciples. What's interesting again is not that they're scared, it's that their response is, don't you care? Now think about in your life when you face a storm. Maybe it's a relational storm. Maybe it's a financial storm. Maybe it's a deciding your future and scared out of your wits storm. Or maybe it's XYZ. There's lots of storms that we face in this life. Hard things that we never choose for ourselves that happen to us. When we face those storms, what is our reaction most of the time? And be honest with yourself, you know? Most of us don't look pretty, right? We don't look our best. We don't act our best. Because in a storm, there's fear, there's anxiety, there's worry, there's unknown. And here with Jesus, it's interesting because for the disciples, this felt personal. It felt personal. It wasn't just a storm. It was a storm that Jesus told them, let's go. And then here comes the storm. So the storm starts to now feel real personal to them. They're like, dude, what the heck? You're going to bring us this storm and then you're just going to sleep? Let us drown? Like, we gave up our lives to follow you, man. Like, we gave up everything to follow you and we've been so obedient. And here you are just sleeping. Like, I am so stressed out. I'm afraid I'm going to die and you're sleeping. Now, most of us, when we're in the storms of life, that's often how you can feel. It starts to feel personal. Like God has this like vendetta on you, you know? Like he's like, oh, there's Nicole. She's having a good day. I'm going to do something now, you know? Like we think that about God oftentimes, more than we like to admit. But what happens here when we think that? When they doubt him, here's the thing. Let me ask you, when the storms of life come, what is your reaction? What is your reaction? Most of us probably will do what he does. It starts to feel personal, these disciples. But here in verse 39, we see that Jesus does something that totally proves them wrong. Because remember, they asked, don't you care? And here's what he does. He woke up and he's like, okay, can you guys imagine? There's like a giant like hurricane in the water and you are in the boat. And this guy just wakes up and he's like, shh, you know, like be quiet, like it's done. And suddenly, like the wind stopped and there was a great calm in an instant because of what he said. Notice, he does not pray, dear God, please calm the storm. He literally speaks to the storm himself and he's like, done. And it's done. With that kind of authority, Jesus rebukes the storm. That's an actual storm. Think about the storms in your life. He has that kind of authority. Now notice, does he pull them out of the boat? Does he pull them out of those waters? No. They are exactly still in the same place. Sometimes God does not pull you out of the storm. But he speaks to your heart and he says, peace, be still. I am with you. You are not alone. And through that, we feel a peace that we cannot explain. Because the one who has authority over the storm has spoken over your life. These disciples literally witnessed Jesus doing what God does. Not just saying it, not just healing some people, like over nature. He can change everything. Now, what happens after that? What's their response? He asks them, after it's all calm, basically he's like, why are you guys all freaking out? Like, why are you all so worried? Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? Okay, I love the next verse because it goes, they were absolutely terrified. Like, he's like, why are you afraid? Like, what's wrong with you guys? And they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, you are something else. They're like, who is this man? Even the winds and waves obey him. Like we thought we're following some really great teacher who has some great teachings, but whoa, he can like mess with the storm. Who is this person? Jesus knew exactly where he was going when he led them into the storm. That's what's interesting, because most of us are going to be like, don't even take me there. Just don't take me there. Just get rid of the storm in my life completely, please. But think about it. Without a storm, without hardship, without it being hard, can we truly ever actually learn anything about anyone? When you're in school, if you learn something new, it's hard, right? Like your brain hurts because it's hard. But through that, your brain muscle gets like worked so that you can actually learn something. Same thing in this world. Through hardship, through difficulty, that's how God always teaches us. Now, here's the thing. There's a storm in this room, right? Okay. Every one of us will face storms. A stormless life is no life at all, okay? That doesn't exist. So in your life, there will be storms. There have been and there will be. Maybe you're in one right now. But the question is this. The storm can either bring you closer to him or further away from him. That choice is yours. The storm will still be there, okay? And most of the time, we get hung up on God, just get the storm away. But y'all, that's kind of like a wasted prayer, to be honest. You know, no prayer is wasted. But that's a little bit of wasted energy because the reality is that storm is going to be there and more will come. So the more important question is, how will you and I respond in the storm? Will it cause us to be more angry, more resentful of him? Or will it cause us to be more dependent, more obedient, more willing to ask him to be with us? Now, let me ask you, what is the storm in your life right now? Maybe it's a small one. It's tiny. Maybe you're scared about the future. Got a couple graduates in here. I know you all. You know all the graduation speeches right now? They're like, life is yours for the taking. And that's how like all the like graduation speeches are. Like, you're going to be amazing. You're going to change the world. In my humble opinion, at 18, you cannot change the world. Okay? But you can make your life one step at a time go that direction. But you cannot change the world. Okay? So everyone's here like telling you the best is yet to come, which is true. Okay? Don't get all disappointed on me. But the reality is, I wish someone would go up on a commencement, like graduation, and speak this. Life will be hard. It's going to be hard. And all your dreams may not come true. And that's okay. The more important thing is who you are and whose you are in all of that process, right? Like, who are you? Who is God? And how do you become more a follower of him through all of this? All of us. I want to ask you, is your storm bringing you closer to him or are you drifting further away from him? Because that is the only thing you can control. You can't control the storm, but you can control your response to him. Maybe you're thinking, God, do you not care? Is that why you're letting this happen? That's a legitimate response, and it's okay to respond. Because guess what? The disciples responded that way. And he was like, I'll still calm the storm for you, even though you don't believe me, even though you're doubting. You have no control over the storm, but you have control over how you respond to the one who does control the storm. When you think about Jesus, what do you think of? Is he the one that is with you? Is he your anchor in the storm? Or is he far away? Jesus did not come just to speak or just to heal. He came to have authority over our lives, to be the one that can control all things that we cannot control. Can I have the praise team come up? When the storms of life come, who is Jesus to you? Who is he to you? When things are good, that's when you're supposed to build your trust in him more. Maybe you're not in a storm season right now, and that's really great. And so right now is the time for you and I to learn more about who he is, that he is a good father, that he is with us, that his presence is everything. If we're in the storm, still you can call out to him. Even in your unbelief, you can call out to him. Can we all stand? You don't have to stand if you want to, but you can stand if you like to. The rest of you who are able-bodied can stand, young ones, okay? What is it in your life that's a storm right now? Maybe you see the storm coming, and there's no way to avoid it. Maybe you're in it. Maybe you just passed through one. Whatever it is, who is Jesus to you in that storm? And if you feel like, do you even care, God? That's okay. That's an okay response to have. If you're like, God, where are you? That's an okay response to have. The point is, no response is off limits, but to respond is the key. To talk to him, to wake him up and be like, God, why are you just sleeping? Why aren't you intervening in my life? That's all you have to do. Ask him to intervene, and he will. Can we sing this song together? It's Good, Good Father. And it's a song that we all know really well, but do we really, really think this when we're going through the storms of life? And that's what I want to challenge you with, is to truly see and believe that he is good. Sing this together.